If you receive a call, please put it on mute and not hold. We do not want to hear music. So I will now turn it over to you.
Perfect. All right. Can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be in front of you today to share a little bit about the state's educational attainment goal. I will start and end by saying we will not meet our goal but for our wonderful community colleges. So thrilled to be in front of you today. We are partners with all of you and look forward to finding even stronger partnerships moving forward. And I want to just do another check. I'm rolling through the slides. Can you see them as I go? I don't want to make assumptions. Perfect.
Yes, we can.
So North Carolina does have a skills gap problem. I think that I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I want to share a little bit about the background of MyFutureNC and the role that we play in the state's educational attainment goal. If you look at the jobs that we have in North Carolina, 2/3 of those require some level of education after high school, but we've got about 49% of our North Carolinians between ages 25 and 44 that have the degree or the credential that's needed in order to fill these jobs. So in 2017, under the direction of Margaret Spellings, who was the UNC system president at that point in time, and also another key partner, MC Belk Pylon, who is on my board and one of our key funders, these two ladies came together and said, North Carolina has a skills gap problem. What can we do to resolve it? They stood up a commission. It was called the MyFutureNC Commission, and brought together a lot of key thought leaders, influential partners across the state who did a bunch of listening tours, looked at data, looked at research. And at the end of that, they said the first thing is we need to have a goal for the state in order to have a North Star. And so based on the data, it was determined that North Carolina would need 2 million North Carolinians between the ages of 25 and 44 to have a high quality credential or a post-secondary degree by the year 2030. And then the General Assembly in that same session that summer took action, and they said, we want to codify this goal into state law. We believe that this is the way for North Carolina to be economically competitive now and moving into the future. So this is the state's educational attainment goal. In order to move the goal into action, the group of commissioners formed a 501c3 nonprofit, and then also created a board of directors that consisted of many of the members from the commission. I'm thrilled that my partner in this work, who's been with it all along, who was one of the commissioners, is Jeff Cox. And so that was why it was very organic for me to think about who would be a good partner to present on strategies that are underway across the state and in our local communities to help us. So we're excited that Jeff was involved from the beginning and remains on our active advisory board of commissioners now. Our board of directors is for the nonprofit itself, and it is made up of very key strategic individuals from business all the way through to philanthropy. So on our board of directors, we have key business leaders like the Chamber of Commerce president. We have the CEO for Inmar Intelligence and Duke Energy, Lynn Good, is on the board. Also partners Bank of America, and then others as well. In our education and policymaker cohort on the board, we've got the leaders of all of our education entities. We've got President Hans, we've got President Stith, we have the superintendent of K-12 education and the State Board of Education. We also have the Independent Colleges and Universities president. We've got policymakers that are very influential. Senator Berger and Speaker Moore have appointments on the board, as well as the governor, who happens to be Jeff Coltrane, who's the education advisor for the governor. And then finally, philanthropy. And we've got Ann Goodnight with the Goodnight Educational Foundation, as well as Anna Spangler, who also is on the Board of Governors, among others. So the question during the work of the commission was, okay, if we have a goal of 2 million by 2030, if the state does nothing else, where do we stand in terms of meeting our goal? It's been determined that based on the data that we had back in 2018, which was the most recent census data that plays into this formula, we stand to fall short by 300,000 individuals by the year 2030 if the state does nothing more. The pandemic has wreaked havoc on our educational workforce system, so we anticipate that this goal is actually going to be even a bigger gap than the 300,000. The other key piece to our efforts for MyFutureNC is when you look at educational attainment levels and you break it down by the demographics. As you can see on this slide, the Black and brown populations tend to have lower levels of educational attainment. We are rapidly becoming a much more Black and brown state. And so when you look at that, if we don't focus on our Black and brown populations and try to increase educational attainment levels there, we will not meet our goal as well. So why does it matter? Individuals with higher levels of education earn as much as 2 to 3 times as much as somebody with a high school degree or less. And then on the right of this, which is really relevant to today, is when you look at down economies. As we went through in the Great Recession, as we just came out of, hopefully came out of with the pandemic or are in the process of coming out, individuals with lower levels of education, high school or less, were 3.5 times more likely to lose their jobs during a down economy. That has held true during this current pandemic. So what are we doing about it? As I mentioned, we are an organization that is here to take action around the state's educational attainment goal. We've had a number of collaboratives. Many of those have been in partnership with the community colleges as well as K-12, workforce, etc. I'm not going to get into all of these, but what I'll do is just hit on a few, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to talk through a couple that have been very specific and will be relevant to today's conversation. All of our work is centered around data and research. And so all of our efforts as we look at where we're going to focus is based around the data and research. We've partnered with Carolina Demography, and during the commission, if you take 100 ninth grade students, they wanted to figure out where are we losing students in this education pipeline. So if you take 100 ninth grade students, 13% of those ninth graders are not going to complete high school on time. Of those that do graduate high school, 29% are not going to go on to some sort of education after high school within 12 months of graduation. And then for those that do go on, 13% are not going to come back in year 2. And then for those that do come back in year 2, you've got 14% that don't graduate within a 6-year window with a credential or a 2 or a 4-year degree. So where does that leave us as a state? That leaves us with 31% of those ninth graders that I mentioned on the front end going to and through and either coming out within 6 years with a credential or a 2 or a 4-year degree, 31% of those ninth graders. And so on that very first slide, I mentioned that 2/3 of our jobs require some level of education after high school, but what I've just explained is only 31% or about 1/3 are coming out with that from our current high school system. And so one of the things that we also recognize is we have to double down and bring adult learners back into our systems. We've got 1.2 million North Carolinians with some level of education after high school, but they didn't complete what they start. So we're in the process of partnering with 5 of our community colleges around that initiative. Our goal is to have a shared vision for attainment. And when you look at whether it's K-12 or you look at our adult learners, the goal is to try to make sure that students graduate ready for some sort of post-secondary experience. They have access to an affordable opportunity. Community colleges are instrumental because you're strategically located across the state where individuals can get to a local community college very quickly. So if nothing else, from a convenience perspective, access there is also important. We want students to complete where they start. As I mentioned, we've got 1.2 million North Carolinians with some level of education but didn't complete it. So it's important they complete it, and so they don't come out with just debt, but they also come out with a credential that aligns with the workforce needs. So there's a return on that investment. And then finally, everything should be focused around labor market alignment so that we can focus on providing education and training for jobs that are high demand or high growth that also pay a living wage. So we are a state-led organization, but the work has to happen at the grassroots level. And one of the things that we have tried to do and focus on, we're actually in year 2 of being a nonprofit, And getting out in the local communities has been critical to our success. In the last month, we announced 15 local educational attainment collaboratives. We're partnering with the North Carolina School of Government NC Impact Initiative. And in partnership with them, and also taking these 15 collaboratives that are strategically placed in all of our eight prosperity zones, we will begin helping them in setting local goals, establishing strategies that would ultimately increase attainment, and then helping them with finding ways to implement those strategies and sharing best practices across all the collaboratives, and also best practices and lessons learned. In addition to those local collaboratives, we'll be partnering with all of our communities to make sure that we are lifting up or catalyzing local action so that we would end up with all 100 counties involved in these initiatives. The first 15 cohort is only the beginning for our local educational attainment collaboratives in that formalized network, but that 15 actually is comprised of 36 counties. So we're essentially hitting about a third of the state on the front end, but we will continue adding collaboratives along the way. The next piece, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny. As I mentioned, we are data driven, and everything that we do is to try to make sure that we are able to measure our progress and look at key performance indicators on what will lead to increases in educational attainment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny, and she will take you from here to talk about our data initiatives.
Thank you, Cecilia. And as you were talking, I hope you guys can hear me okay. Do I sound okay, Cecilia?
Great, you're perfect.
Okay, so as you were talking, I was adding some links in the chat. So I linked straight over to the Leaky Pipeline report, which is a couple years old now, but I really think that that provides some of the foundational data work for not just the MyFutureNC Commission, but for really understanding our state. I think many of you, like me, grew up here, and we've always thought of ourselves as an education state. So to see what's really happening and when and how some of our students are kind of taking an off-ramp from our educational system, I think it was really eye-opening to both the commission, and really encourage you all to take a look at that if you haven't done so. I also put links in to just some information about the local collaboratives that Cecilia mentioned. Gives you the list of who they are, and also really provides additional information about our partnership with the School of Government and Anita Brown Graham and her leadership. It's been a real unique opportunity, I think, for us as a just getting started nonprofit to have an opportunity to partner across the state with local level leaders and with the School of Government. And then finally, I put a link in here to local county profiles. I hope I have done so many of these presentations. I hope you guys have either seen these or even used them locally, but today just had, they've been out for a little bit less than a year. So where this whole idea came from really was following in the footsteps of our friends in Tennessee. They've been driving on this attainment work for about 12 years. And when we asked them, what was like a key lever that you used to be able to facilitate some conversations coming from the state level leaderships down to the local level, they said, you guys have got to do these county level attainment profiles. That number 2 million, I mean, it's really important to drive state policy, but it's so abstract. So really helping people at the local level understand what's working really well in their local community and what's not. Where are some places that they can focus and come together, can galvanize some conversations. So we worked really closely with our friends at Carolina Demography. They're the ones that actually wrote and led that Leaky Pipeline report with the commission. They are outstanding data partners. They understand big data sets, they understand projections, and they, while they're not kind of primary education focused, it actually lent some, just this real wealth of knowledge and kind of horsepower behind our data work. So we created 100 unique county profiles with the intent of updating these every single year. These are our very first ones. So on the next couple of slides, I'm going to go over what some of the changes you might be seeing in this next version. So Dr. Becky Tippett and I have been leading this work and have had maybe talked to 1,000 people around the state about these. If you haven't seen them, I really encourage you to click on that link, go to your county's profile. We tried to be very intentional in lifting up the work of the community colleges. You guys absolutely shine, and we want to continue to kind of communicate. We worked really closely with people like President Jeff Cox, with other presidents around the state, with the Community College System Office, to make sure that the very unique and important role you guys are playing at the local level to make those connections between K-12 and the workforce don't go unnoticed. So as you're looking at your profile across that top blue bar, what we really tried to do was talk about the context of the county. So it's just some pretty common data points, about the population of the people living in your county. That next row is focused on building the foundation, pre-K to 8th grade. It's really about getting kids kindergarten ready, and then through middle school, getting them ready for a robust high school experience. The Ready for College and Career really focuses on the high school experience in your county. And we tried to lift up and elevate things like, participation in AP, participation in CCP. We tried to talk about the quality of FAFSA, the number of FAFSA completion for FAFSA, 9th grade enrollment, that kind of stuff, all the way through graduation rate. That next row is about post-secondary access and success. Again, focusing on what's happening when students from that county are entering into a post-secondary space. We've provided some information, really unique data actually in that third row about post-secondary access, using a data pool that we got from the National Student Clearinghouse during the commission. Again, hoping, and the intent here is to have this data updated, have this profile updated in the fall with the addition of some new data, some kind of next step longitudinal data. That next row is focused on labor market outcomes. So we worked with our friends at the Department of Commerce here in North Carolina. They have some outstanding data analysts, and we're able to pull some pretty unique data for us that allows us to give an alignment number. So there's an alignment between the number of students graduating from post-secondary institutions in the Prosperity Zone subregion with the top job openings in the local community. Finally, something else that our friends at Carolina Demography were able to pull out of this data is they compared each county to its peer counties. So we grouped all the counties in the state into 4 groups based on population density, so that the most urban counties were being compared to each other, and then we compared to the most rural counties were being compared to one another. And so what Carolina Demography did was, where they lined up all 100 counties, were able to look at peer county groups, and where there was the biggest difference between you and your peer county was identified as an opportunity for growth, a place where there was room for improvement. There was room for this local community to say, and for Johnston County, you can see it was focused on low performing schools, NC pre-K participation, and then math performance. So Cecilia, if you'll just go to the next slide. So here we've kind of pulled out a couple of next steps for revising our county profiles. We're anticipating those will get released in the fall, depending on, we've had a little bit, and I think I've got a slide on this, a couple of data delays just from COVID, just like things I'm sure each of you are experiencing. But there's a couple of pieces. We're going to be adding a local county level goal. So that was a piece of feedback that we got, that the $2 million, like I said, was really important to drive some of the state level decisions. So one of the things we heard is you all wanted a 2030 county attainment goal. So we spent some time this year talking to, I think we talked to 10 different communities from all across the state, did some math, came up with some estimates, got some feedback, and so those will be included on the local goals the next round. We're also including some economic and workforce development data points, things like unemployment rate, voter participation, that kind of stuff, or percent of registered voters. We're going to be removing low performing schools designation, data on academic growth, and occupational projections because of the impact of COVID with not having those standardized tests in K-12 last academic year. We're going to be adding and updating. We've gotten a ton of feedback on those opportunities for growth, making them more specific, making them more tightly aligned to the data, and making them more actionable. We're going to be adding 100 new promising practices. This was a piece that we heard from some of our economic development partners to say, you know, some of this data doesn't always make us look great. And so is there a place on the profile that we can lift up something that's working really well at the local level? So I will put a link as soon as I'm done presenting. I'll put a link in the chat. We've got a new survey that we just pushed out, and we are looking for 100 new promising practices on this next version of the profiles. I know you all know of some amazing things going on at the local level. We would love to be able to lift those up, not just on the profiles, but we're working on creating a shareable, searchable, outward-facing database. So, for example, if you were looking for a really powerful apprenticeship program for middle school students, and you wanted to stand that up in your county, you might be able to find that Surrey County has something like that. And so really wanting to be able to share those those kind of best practices across the state. We're going to have a portion of the profiles that pulls out and lists and kind of highlights some of the impacts that we all know to be true, but making sure that things like enrollment and drops in enrollment all across the education continuum, wanting to make sure that our county leaders that are maybe not as familiar with the education system understand the impact of those kinds of what the pandemic's really going to have. So because when we developed these profiles, the intent of them was to be able to start a conversation at the local level, a cross-sector conversation with elected officials and your K-12 partners and your community college partners and your businesses. We are going to be changing the overall layout based on a bunch of feedback we've gotten over the year. We're going to be making the profiles more visual, less text. And we're also going to be shifting from prosperity zone subregions, which is how we organized a lot of the data, a lot of the data, especially in the labor market side. We're going to be shifting over to workforce board regions. So instead of the 16 sub-prosperity zones, we're going to be shifting to the 23 workforce board regions. And we're also going to be including and linking out to as many resources to help you dig into whatever data you're most interested in. For this first pass, we've really tried to, on our website, link to a lot of our state dashboards, like all the work that Bill Schneider and his team did with the community college system and the community college dashboards. There's stuff like that for pre-K, for K-12, and and on up the chain. So thinking about and making sure that broadly people are more aware of the rich data that's available to each of us. Cecilia, will you go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is just a quick slide about those local attainment goals. Some of the feedback we've gotten about this is, to be totally honest, we're not going to make like a big splash about these. We're just going to put them on the profiles as another data point, but we'll be sharing out with the community college presidents, with the superintendents, a link to a sortable spreadsheet that allows you to see all 100 counties' 2030 attainment goals. It allows you to see how it was calculated. We're going to have like a frequently asked questions guide that really talks about how you can use this work we've done with the setting local attainment goals to have a strategic, long-term planning conversation at the local level. Next slide. And here you'll see this is where we'll include it on the local profiles. Oh, this has all the information. I got ahead of myself as usual. But Cecilia, she mentioned those local education attainment collaboratives. We will be using these local goals in those conversations and building out and developing some tools for how to use these, again, for strategic planning and facilitating conversations at the local level. Additionally, some of the feedback we got is people wanted to be able to interact with the data a little bit more. And so because of the profiles were really intended to be like a 2-page summary, like kind of a cheat sheet of data points, common data points across all the counties. But there are lots of places where folks wanted to dig into, are there gender differences? Are there race differences? Are there socioeconomic status differences? And so what we're going to do is do a version 1.0 of this County Explorer tool, which will allow you as the user to interact with the data in a new way. And here it just is another kind of tighter zoomed in version of this. And then finally, just wanted to mention some additional work going on that we've been involved in. It's been a real treat to serve on this kind of core working team. I think I saw Margaret Robertson has been really involved in this. As you guys know, she's been a leader both at the system office and at Central Carolina. And then also Nate Humphrey with the system office, Bill Schneider with the system office. Really been working on this, a way that North Carolina can develop a prioritized list of non-degree workforce credentials based on data. So based on jobs that we know that lead to a family sustaining wage and will have openings. So there will be jobs available in that field, in that occupation over the next couple of years. And so we've been working at the state level to define a continuum of credentials, and this work has really been focused on those two columns in the middle, the essential credentials and career credentials. We have finally got a draft list, or the first list. We've got 9 sectors, industry that we did focused industry engagement sessions with. 9 sectors covered for the first draft list. We're also going to be working with our partners across the sectors, across commerce, community college, CTE, and DPI, and the workforce board to create an NC Workforce Credentials Council, an advisory structure to formalize this process. We were kind of all doing this as part of our existing work to get an initial list pulled together. And now we'll be shifting this into a more formal process over the next couple of months. All right, Cecilia, with that, I'm shifting it over back to you. I know that was a lot of stuff, and I'll put, again, that link to some of the things highlighted here today on the Take Action.
Thanks, Jenny. And I'm just going to wrap up on this slide, and Monty, I'll turn it over to you, and if you want to open up for Q&A if we have time, or otherwise we can turn it over to Jeff and Yolanda. But the one thing I want to wrap up with is we would like to have you walk away from this conversation and say, what can we do at the local level to help increase educational attainment in your area of the state? And I do believe that if you take advantage of these county attainment profiles, as Jenny mentioned, you can take it, drill down on the data, figure out what the 3 opportunities for growth are by county for those counties that you serve, and then help that to drive and start those local conversations. Where we do have the local promising practices, we want you to share those out. Jenny, if you're sticking that in the chat, that'd be great. And then we partnered with the community colleges. We had a number of the community colleges that did a FAFSA drive-in this summer, or the end of the school year with us. One of our strands of work in partnership with College Foundation of North Carolina has been to encourage high school students to complete the FAFSA through a FAFSA challenge that we had. So however you can partner with your local schools to help increase FAFSA completions, students will see that as an affordable opportunity for them. And then, of course, we would encourage you to identify somebody within your community college to partner with us as a local My Future champion. Reach out to Jenny and me, or however, to make sure that you stay connected with this work. So with that, I'm going to quit sharing my screen. And do I need Monty? I don't know if I quit automatically or not. Did I quit sharing?
I am here. Your screen is not being shared, and I will go ahead and transition it over to Dr. Cox and Dr. Wilson.
Thank you.
All right, well, as Dr. Wilson is pulling up our screen here and sharing that. Just so would start by giving a little bit of context about us and our place here at Wilkes Community College. So a quick background for me, I come at this work from a perspective of having spent the first 20 or so years of my career in K-12 education, and just came into the community college world with this role. So a little bit of a different background. One of the things I guess that I bring to this role here at Wilkes Community College is I'm born and raised in this region of the state, in Allegheny County, which is part of our service area. So I care a lot about this community, and I want to see it prosper. And that was one of the things that really drew me to this role, is the potential that I think the community colleges have to shape and improve the economy in their respective regions of the state. So I came at it from that perspective, came here to the college and inherited a great staff, from the leadership team down through the faculty and our support staff, folks who really cared about our students and our community. So it's a great place to be. But I did also, during those early years, I think it was my third year of being president, I had the opportunity to get into the Aspen Institute for presidents, and that experience kind of changed some of my perspective on how we were doing as a college and serving our community. Really a strong focus on student success measures, and taking a hard look at our data, which we have been doing some of, but that really increased the focus. And as part of that Aspen Fellowship, we created a new 5-year strategic plan that has driven a lot of the change that we're going to talk about with you today. So I just want to mention that. And it also impacted our ability to recruit Dr. Wilson to join our ranks. So I'll let her speak to her perspective on that, and we'll get started.
I tell you, good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to be with you, and appreciate so much the opportunity to share and be a part of this great conversation. As Dr. Cox mentioned, as I joined the team last year here at Wilkes Community College, one of the beautiful things that I saw, among many things, around the great work that's being done at this institution is that focus on those Aspen pillars, as he mentioned, that is really beautifully represented in that 5-year strategic plan. And that focus centers around equity as a foundational element, making sure that all students are successful, no matter where they come from, what walk of life they've been a part of, what their background happens to be. And we saw some of that data in the county demographics, that we do have equity gaps that appear in different counties in different ways. And having that as a foundation of the strategic plan, as well as a focus on teaching and learning, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is one of those areas. We've seen a lot of wraparound services and student service efforts being developed, but it's one of those areas that we really knew that we needed to support faculty, go in and address maybe some of those gaps in the classroom to support student success. And there's also a huge focus on looking at our transfer and completion rates, as well as labor market outcomes. And so that was the foundation of the plan that drew me beautifully. And then when I came to this wonderful college community, recognizing the culture of caring, I know Amarillo College likes to use that as their coined phrase, but Wilkes embodies that, lives that. And I think you'll see that in some of the 10 strategies that we're going to share with you in just a moment. The focus, laser focus on becoming a student-ready college. You may be familiar with that text. We read that text together last year, senior leadership and some of our middle managers across the campus, that we don't expect our students to come to this campus college ready, because we know, as we can see in some of our communities, that there are students who want to return to college, who are fearful, who are afraid. First generation college students have many barriers. What can we do then as an institution to be student ready for all students? And I think Cecilia mentioned even our Black and Brown students, the gaps that are widening. How do we create safe spaces and learning environments for all students. It's not just an equity issue, it's an economic development issue. And so we've got to think through how do we reach and connect with all students and make sure that they have the credentials they need to be successful in the workforce or at four-year institutions.
Well, and I'll just add that again, the work that MyFutureNC is doing, and Cecilia's right, I had the good fortune to be involved from the beginning with that. That beautifully aligned with where we were going and what we knew needed to happen at our institution, which was to improve the attainment. We know that for folks to have living wage jobs, they're going to need a college education, some kind of post-secondary credential. So we don't have all the answers, but we're trying a lot of things. One of the things I would say at the beginning is it's not any one thing. We figured that out pretty quickly. There's not one magic bullet to this. We have to do a lot of things simultaneously to begin moving the needle, and that's what we're trying to do. So, Yolanda, you take off and start with our overview, please.
So looking at the 10 strategies there, you'll see that we honed in. There are many more being done at the institution, but we honed in on what we'll consider kind of our top 10 and kind of unpack those with you. One of the first strategies there, and I'll like to start off by saying that none of this work can be done alone. It is a wonderful collaborative effort at Wilkes Community College and many of our faculty and staff who have built these strategies from the ground up to help support students. And I would be amiss to not give a shout out to those areas. One of my dear colleagues, Kim Fall, in her area, looking at the cultivation of K-12 counselor partnerships, as well as high school career coaches, a unique program that exists in the state. Her area being one of the key developers of our student advising model. You'll hear more about that in a moment, a centralized advising model, carrying our students from start to finish. The Promise Scholarship Program, continuous enrollment options. We'll talk about that more. We talked about adult learners needing flexibility, needing more opportunities when they work, have families, other responsibilities. And another piece of this presentation today with Jenny and Cecilia was the emphasis on data and how we have used as an institution data more and more to inform our decision making and a dashboard that we employ through Power BI. Benchmarking, we talked about that and some of the snapshot dashboards there, the peered benchmarking information that we get in our system office with that dashboard that's provided, as well as our enhanced wraparound services about to start what we're calling wraparound services 2.0, implementation of a visa, many of you are using that, and our teaching and learning fellowship program. So Dr. Cox is going to go into more detail about some of those.
Again, there are a lot of moving pieces here, and again, I would just want to comment that any one of these in isolation, it's hard to really pinpoint how impactful. For example, the high school career coaches. We had, of course, some funding from the state, which everybody was eligible to receive. It required some matching funds if you're gonna put those career coaches in your high schools. The state provided funding. We had the local. You had to provide the matching funds. We developed this as part of our strategic plan and found a philanthropic partner who was willing to not only provide those matching funds for us, but went above and beyond that to say they wanted to fund a couple of additional positions so that we could put a career coach in every single high school in our service area. So we have been able to do that and put those coaches in place. We believe they're a vital partner for us in staying well connected with all of the high schools in our service area. So those career coaches work alongside the guidance counselors or the school counselors and the school principals, assistant principals, and teachers to help students understand the connection between where their interests lie and what they want to be in terms of a career and what the educational pathway or pathways are that might get them there. But it has been challenging to kind of pinpoint what is the exact impact of those coaches. We're making a pretty significant investment. It was $1 million gift to the college to be able to implement this plan initially for over a 4-year period. And we're constantly trying to do an analysis to figure out to what extent are we moving the needle with getting more students with the goal of coming to college with a specific career plan. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But again, if you go around these different initiatives, we launched a new Promise Scholarship. We're launching that this fall. Our version of that, a lot of you all already have some variety of that in place. This is going to be a pretty comprehensive model, very inclusive of all the students in our service area who meet very basic criteria we'll talk about. We've revamped our college advising program. We'll share a little bit more about that. Yolanda has brought with her some great ideas on continuous enrollment and mini masters. Again, some of you are already doing those things. We're implementing those, have started this past year. We're totally revamping our professional development initiative here at the college and how we're looking at teaching and learning with a focus this year. The wraparound services, a lot of the research that we've done suggests that even with one of these College Promise programs, even if you cover the tuition and fees for the students, if you don't have a pretty comprehensive set of wraparound services to provide tutoring and support for students outside the academic areas or outside the financial area, you're not going to be as successful as you could be otherwise. So we know that's a critical piece that we're, again, building and shaping even as we're going forward with the Promise program. And of course, our counselors are always vital partners to us. We know they're the gatekeepers really for whether students are going to choose to go to community college or university or maybe not go to college at all. So we'll talk about each of those a little bit in turn. Yolanda?
So perfect segue to the counselor partnerships K-12. And again, I want to acknowledge a great colleague's work around this area. Becca Gardner has done tremendous work for us here at the institution on this. And some of you are probably doing something similar. We're planning discovery days. We'll focus on middle and high school teachers and counselors, focusing primarily on CTE areas, our career and technical education programs, and really using that as an opportunity to bring them on campus, our K-12 partners, and to really highlight and showcase this summer what we're doing firsthand. Give them an opportunity to walk through our different technical programs and not just kind of sit back and let it be a lecture style of information and kind of a brain dump there, but more of a hands-on, interactive, seeing firsthand how our students learn in these applied programs and really make it exciting and engaging so they can take that excitement back to their respective high schools and middle schools, and give us an opportunity to really kind of share the value proposition of the community college. I think that some of you will agree that sometimes we're having to really kind of explain and sometimes even promote or defend why community colleges matter, why they're important, particularly now in the growth and the economic development of our country and our regions, and what value proposition they may offer that's different than our university partners. And having our colleagues from K-12 come on campus to see firsthand how we have smaller class sizes, how we have applied career and technical education programs that lead immediately to jobs, making really good living wages so children can support their families, showing them that right away, hands-on, having an opportunity to kind of get them to meet the faculty and the staff, see our heart for students and our heart for this community college mission. We're really excited about doing that because it is a partnership. It is something that you have to cultivate, just like any other relationship or partnership. You have to continue to kind of make sure that you're nurturing and growing that partnership. So we want to bring them on campus and give them stipends. Let them know that we value what they do in the K-12 space, that we're going to develop with them a plan right here on our campus that they'll take back to their respective high schools and middle schools and put into place a plan with some actionable items, some SMART goals, some deliverables that we can follow up with them after they leave our campus, and have them really partner with us and really bringing that value proposition back to their respective locations and encouraging and urging students to come and take a look at what we have to offer.
One of the revelations, Yolanda, that I've had, I guess, is my background in K-12, was that the high school counselors, the vast majority of them did what I did, went through high school, went straight to university somewhere, got their education, and then came back in, back into the K-12 pipeline. And they just don't sometimes think about the community college as being the destination, particularly for their students who are capable maybe of going straight into a university.
That's right.
The system has historically kind of expected, the success measure has been, how many students can you get into the universities?
That's right.
And so that's trying to change that culture and help them understand that we're not a second tier choice. We're actually the first best choice for the vast majority of kids in our service area. They should come to us. Even if they're going on to university, they should come to us. What we found is if we can get them here on campus and they can see our nursing program, they can see our welding program, they start putting individual student faces with some of those career tracks. Like, wait a minute, you can go and get a 2-year degree in welding and get out and make $50,000 a year. I had no idea you could do that. It's just not in their frame of reference sometimes. So that's a big push for us making that happen. But
that's right. And I want to share this too, Dr. Cox. You reminded me of this, and I want to bring this point out because I think this is one of the other awesome pieces about that strategic plan that Dr. Cox mentioned earlier, that he and the team helped craft, is that you value what you measure. And so in all of these different strategies, they're embedded within that 5-year strategic plan, and there are work teams and groups that then measure the effectiveness of these strategies and tweak it and update the plan and do an annual report around these strategies. So I just want to mention that as you're hearing the different strategies, it's not just this disparate kind of strategic efforts happening and there's no kind of collaboration, there's no kind of connectivity among all of these different thrusts or strands. They all fit under those Aspen pillars that I mentioned to you earlier. And each work group or team around these strategies then collect data about the effectiveness of it and report on it annually. So then there could be modifications and adjustments made accordingly. Okay, back to you, Dr. Cox.
Yeah, so I mentioned getting the philanthropic support for some of these initiatives. And one thing that I would say to all of you is, it's kind of a field of dreams approach, I guess. If you build it, they will come. I think that's true about strategic planning. If you can build a compelling enough vision for your community and the role you believe the college can play in impacting the economic well-being of your community and the people who live in your service area, and then you can develop specific strategies that make sense on how you're going to impact that in a positive way. We found anyway, people are eager to step in and support that. So this Robert L. Strickland Career Coach Program is one great example. Robert L. Strickland was a Lowe's executive back in the early days, and his family has a foundation. He was keen on education and developing leadership. So his family really loved this idea of the Career Coach Program. So basically the purpose of it, you can see there, to assist high school students with determining career goals, identifying community college programs that support those goals. Again, if you think about our school counselors and how overwhelmed they are with all their other duties that they have, they don't have enough time to really get into having a lot of individual conversations with each student about their career ambitions. So that's a place we can step in alongside those school counselors and provide that support. So we've got in our service area 6 career coaches that are in each of the 6 traditional high schools, serving about 3,800 students. Nearly all the students have been reached through presentations that the career coaches have given. We have 1,427 students have been met with individually. 100% of all of the dually enrolled students have developed individualized career and academic plans. So every kid who's taken any CCP class with us, they've got a specific individualized career and academic plan. What do they want to be, and what is the educational pathway to get there? 100% of them, all of them. That makes a big difference. Again, it's a learning curve for me as a superintendent. I was just intent on thinking about getting more kids with more college credit. I didn't understand that kind of random acts of college weren't going to get kids where they needed to be. They need to be on a track. It need to have a purpose. And just taking a smattering of different kinds of courses may or may not serve the student well. So our coaches understand that better than I did when I was a superintendent, and work hard with our students to keep them on the pathway. We know that students served have a greater likelihood of success if they can get on and stay on the pathway. So another big initiative that we've undertaken, again with a different family, the Petro Kulinik Student Advising Program, we were able to launch with another $1 million gift from this family. We totally revamped the way we were looking at advising. Dr. Wilson pointed out some of our strategy on looking around not just around the state, our sister institutions here, but really looking nationally, particularly with some of those Aspen Prize winning community colleges around the country, to see which colleges were doing specific things really well. And so we did a lot of research around the student advising program to figure out, who was really being successful. And it ended up being that we had somebody here at our own institution kind of propose this model, which is a little bit different than anything we had seen anywhere else around the country. So basically what we've done is we had ACA instructors. That's our college success course that we all have. We decided we were going to take those ACA instructors who the students were taking, were supposed to be taking their first semester. We found out that wasn't always the case. Sometimes students were putting that class off until the end instead of taking it at the beginning. So some advising again, to help straighten that out. But those advisors, those instructors, we decided we were going to make them half-time instructors and half-time advisors. So essentially, an ACA instructor would get a group of students, teach them that ACA curriculum, and then they would become that student's advisor for the duration of their time they're here at Wilkes Community College. So they'll stick with them as long as they're a student here. They're going to be their primary advisor. We had to hire some new positions to do that, and again, that's where the grant funds helped us to be able to do that. So the piece that changed for us is our faculty members had served as advisors before also, and we shifted the model to say we're not going to take the faculty out of it, but we're going to shift them into a mentor role. So if you can imagine a typical student maybe who comes to the institution, doesn't know what he or she wants to do exactly. They get into the ACA class, the instructor works with the student, they determine a pathway, maybe they're going to be an automotive student. So that is advisor, the ACA instructor / advisor would stay with that student, continue to provide the advising for the duration. But once that student got in the automotive program, the faculty mentor in the automotive program also steps in to come alongside the advisor and provide mentorship. In other words, if you're an automotive student and you're maybe in your final year, you're going to need that faculty mentor to help make those connections out to the world of work. As great as an advisor might be, he or she is not going to have connections to the local Ford dealership where they're hiring mechanics. But that faculty mentor will know that. he'll know what the wages are in that area, whether they should look locally or at a commutable driving distance from the college, maybe to drive to Hickory or Winston-Salem or whatever. Those are things that the advisors are not going to be able to know, but the faculty mentors in all of the different areas of the college do know. So we've revamped this model, and we're getting a lot of positive success out of it. A lot of good feedback from the students. Just having that relationship with that one person at the college, from the day they step foot on campus until their whole pathway through, they've got that connection with that advisor. And a lot of the research says that really that relationship piece, that having a person at the institution that they can connect with and get support from, and it makes a big difference. So we're really excited about this advising program. We'll be happy to answer questions. If you all are interested in more detail about that, we can certainly give you that.
And just piggybacking a little bit about the advising program too, and the faculty mentor role, we're in the process of implementing a VISO, and some of you on the call already have that tool. And I want to thank the colleagues in the state who've helped us in some of our questions around it. But teasing out which features to use in that tool for the faculty mentor versus the advisor, and really thinking through how to make that handoff more intentional and that collaboration more intentional, and using that tool to help bring that connectivity so that as you guys know, the case management part of that tool, where you can see all of the different information about a student, now the faculty mentor and the advisor has access to that information, and they can kind of tag team even more effectively that wraparound support for that student. I will share that as we're thinking through faculty mentors with our college transfer programs, it's not as easy as a fit as it was in our technical areas, simply because in the technical areas, it's more of a cohort model. They see the students all the time. Transfer is a little bit different. And so we're looking at students who kind of identify what they want their major to be, and then identifying a faculty in that content area to work with that student, and students who are undecided, also putting them with someone in the transfer space until that student knows what he or she would like to do. And speaking about wraparound services, looking at kind of the national research of why students stopped out, we know that oftentimes it doesn't have anything to do with the college itself per se, but about life, about things coming up, situations happening, life intervening, pressures that students have to tackle and face, particularly the demographics of a community college student. And you can see that pie chart there that shows that students stop out 47% of those students for non-academic barriers. That's even more than academic barriers. And we ask students who do decide to stop out to give feedback on why those things happen. So even our local data supports and substantiates what the national data is bearing out. And so to have a strategic enrollment management plan or process that rolls into our overarching strategic plan requires that we have robust wraparound services, so that anything that can happen along that student journey and pathway, we're able to help as much as we're able to do. And so the wraparound services is really robust here at Wilkes. You can see in that graph with the student at the center all of the many different ways that we support students, everything from food pantries, not only on the main campus, but we have those at our satellite campuses, because sometimes the satellite campuses perhaps don't have, in some campuses, the same type of services that you would find on the main. And very intentionally, we determine that students are our students no matter what the campus is. So we are one college, many locations. And so if we offer it on main, then we need to offer it on the satellite location as well, or the other campus location as well. So food pantries at multiple locations, transportation support for students. Of course, we loan out laptops and have the best kind of broadband internet services that you'll find in rural regions, just really well known for that. So much so that when COVID came, the infrastructure that was in place already at Wilkes ensured that students had the laptop support they need, that they had the internet services that they needed, that they had great technical support, and even our quality enhancement plan, which is, you know, the 5-year project, student learning project that SAC-COC requires for accreditation, was around faculty development and online instruction. And we were in the 4th year of the plan when COVID hit. So we had many of our faculty already trained in our own QEP program called CORE that was centered around online faculty development. So our faculty were uniquely positioned when COVID happened, as well as our students, because of the services that you see here on the screen, to be able to tackle some of the challenges that I think were more daunting at other institutions. Childcare services, even helping with tax preparations and legal services, and just emergency financial needs. We have different scholarships that we offer students, last dollar scholarships. We have robust counseling and career services. So we just have a lot of programs and services to support students, so that 47% metric that we found nationally can cause a student to stop out who does not want to stop out but has to because of life. We want to be the factor that mitigates that and make sure that whatever that student needs to be successful, we're offering that, because we want to be student ready, and that means ready for all of our students.
Dr. Wilson, the only other thing I would add to that is this is another place where we found a local philanthropic organization who actually funded a lot of our strategic planning initiative itself. As we partnered with them, and they've been thought partners with us and looking at all the data in our community, this is one of those things that emerged that it is clear in the research. If you don't have robust wraparound services, you're going to lose students. Most of the time, you can see it's a non-academic reason students are leaving college. Well, the Heron Family Foundation understands that, and so they have put aside a pretty significant amount of money, several $100,000, to help us with this. And with one of the things that we're going to be doing next year is hiring a new social worker position that's going to help coordinate all these different services in our community. So we don't have all the answers for housing. You know, we don't have dorms, just like none of you do. But we can connect students with the resources that are out there in the community. So we're going to be hiring that position. Again, it's grant funded, but I'm just making that point again, that you have to find folks who have a common vision and want to support the mission of the college. And if you can do that, then you can implement a lot of these different concepts.
And I would piggyback too, and I mentioned my dear colleague earlier, Kim Fall and her team, but one of the beautiful things that I think they do is go to other institutions who have really great practices and figure out a way to bring that back home to our community. And so they've gone to Bunker Hill and other institutions to see how they're doing wraparound services.
We lost your audio there. Okay.
Yeah, it looked like somebody, but it looks like it's back on. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
moving on to the next one.
All right, great.
I think when that was muted. Okay, there we go.
So I mentioned earlier that we're launching our version of an education promise scholarship program. Again, I think there are about 20, maybe already 21 of the 58 colleges in North Carolina have some version of their own education promise scholarship program. So for us, the way we're doing this, it is a 2-year last dollar scholarship that covers the net tuition and institutional fees remaining after an eligible student has received any federal or state grants. So when we looked at this, we determined that of course the majority of students in our service area, like many of you all around the state, most of our students are going to qualify for Pell funding if they complete the FAFSA. They'll find out they can actually get $6,000+ per year. That's going to more than cover their tuition fees, books, really all of their expenses for community college. The disconnect is that a lot of our community have no idea what the FAFSA is, in spite of all the efforts that MyFutureNC is making, trying to get the word out, that we're trying to make to get the word out. It's just a hard sell to help people understand the importance of the FAFSA and to know what Pell Grants are. And that, yes, it is free money. It's not a loan. And if they apply and fill out the FAFSA, they'll likely find out that their student could go to college. So we have a lot of people in our community who think, I didn't go to college, and I can't afford to send my kid to college. And so they've been telling their children for years that college is not for you. We can't afford it. And so part of our hope with this scholarship program is we're going to be promoting out across our whole service area that we guarantee you can come to college if your student meets the minimal criteria that we've established, and it is broad by design. It's basically a minimum of 2.0 grade point average. You have to live in the service area. You have to complete the FAFSA. It's very basic requirements, but we're going to guarantee you if your student will do those things, that he or she can come to Wilkes Community College for 2 years, tuition free of tuition or fees, for institutional fees. So we think that's in terms of messaging, much clearer to families, just to know your kid can come to college, and we're going to make sure the tuition's covered. The fact is, most of those kids are going to qualify for Pell Grants, and they're going to have their tuition covered in that way. We think the numbers that we are projecting would be that we'll have about 75 students who would be new to us next year, who would be in this program that wouldn't be covered through Pell Grants, that we would have to cover through this program. Of that original 75 in that first year cohort, just with attrition, we're thinking we probably have 60 returning in year 2, which means we think we're going to fund about 135 Education Promise recipients each year. There's a lot bigger benefit because there's a lot more students who we hope will apply now and fill out the FAFSA and end up coming to the college, but be covered through the Pell Grant funds or other state grants. But to fund 135 students coming through this program, we think it's going to cost us about $350,000 a year, which means we need to build about an $8.5 million endowment to fund that. So we've launched that fundraising campaign. We've got here, you can see on the logo that this fund is established by the WAW Scholarship Endowment and Diane and Larry Stone. I would tell you that this first scholarship endowment group has been working doing a golf tournament for 20 years, and they have built up a $1.5 million endowment. They decided they were getting weary of doing the golf tournament and were looking to transition it to someone else. I have been talking with the founder of that group for a while about setting up this kind of scholarship at the college. And ultimately, they decided to give us that $1.5 million endowment to launch this program. Once that happened, pretty quickly, Larry and Diane Stone here in our community matched that and provided another $1.5 million to go toward this program. Long story short, before we ever held our first fundraising committee meeting, we had raised $5.5 million to go toward this $8.5 million initiative. So we're still like $3 million, but we have launched it on the hope that we will finish the $8.5 million campaign and be able to fund this program in perpetuity. So that's our plan.
So one of the other efforts that we did was develop a strategic enrollment management team. And the team consists of folk from the academic side of the house, our off-campus locations, our IT department, continuing education, enrollment and student services, and marketing. And the idea around this was recognizing that we needed, again, with that student-ready college concept, a student-centered schedule versus a faculty-driven schedule, and that the schedule needed to be a dynamic schedule versus a static schedule, that we just copy and paste the same schedule every semester because that works, but that we really want to look at the schedule and see where are their needs, what's not working, what do we need to add, what do we need to eliminate, and in what format and modality does that need to be in. I think with this recent COVID shift to so much online and hybrid, we even looked at what does our data say there about what do our students really like, and it seems like hybrid was the sweet spot when we talked to our students. But we also wanted to look at the data around mini-mesters, and many of you are doing mini-mesters, but we wanted to take a deeper look at the data. We have colleges like Odessa in Texas and Amarillo who've gone pretty much at scale with these 8-week mini-mesters across their institutions and have seen tremendous results with student success. And we wanted to see kind of what does that data look like. We also wanted to think through the faculty teaching those courses and do training with that faculty so they didn't put just a 16-week course and plop it into an 8-week shell, that they thought about the key competencies, they trimmed the fat, for lack of a better word, and focused in on really what was essential for that student to learn in that compressed, accelerated format. The benefits are listed there. Some of you and many of you probably know that. You're able to start sooner if you previously stopped out. You can retake a course in the second term if you had a W or F grade, get ahead on your pathway to credentials, and focus in with less classes at a time, making it much more manageable, that cognitive load. We were really pleased to see that in our first 8 weeks in the spring, even with COVID, even with the challenges, that our overarching aggregate success rate for all the sections that we offered, 86% of our students earned a C or better. And that was with an enrollment for us, which was probably about 30 to 40% of our students. And that was in the first 8 weeks. We compared that to prior spring 2020, 2019 results that averaged around 76% with the same courses and saw, of course, a 10% increase in success. When we looked at the second 8-week data, it was equal to those courses, their success rates, or higher than the previous semesters. At no point was it ever lower than the 16-week course success rate overall. So at the very least, we can see that students would do equal or as well or better in the 8-week offerings. That data and sharing that data with our faculty and our other stakeholders across campus encourage some programs to say, hey, we want to do the entire program in an 8-week model. We want to look at scaling up these 8-week courses where there might have been a little bit of hesitancy. Now folks are saying, let's look at how we can make this happen, how we can make this work. And so we're really excited about continuing to offer that. And then in December, mid-December through probably about, I guess you say the second week of January, we're looking at offering a 4.5 week, 5-week winter semester is what we're calling it. And we looked at our Appalachian State schedule, that's our primary transfer partner, to make sure that it would fit in with their scheduled break, because we're also wanting to attract many transfer students who are home for the holidays and might be interested in taking a course or two online during break, in addition to some of our students who may want to get ahead and accelerate their pathway. So we're excited about those winter semester offerings as well. I thought it would be nice to have a quote from two of our different faculty here. You see Neil and you see Erica, both of them who talked about, and I think that must have been on a timer, so I apologize for that. Neil and Erica, who both talked about how those particular mini-semester courses impacted their students. Neil is our math department chair, math and science department chair, and he did some of our more rigorous math courses and chemistry courses online in his area, and talked about even chemistry in a 4-week semester, talking about how his students were able to successfully take that course and that accelerated program, and how he was able to make that work. And even in the sequential courses, Math 71 and Math 172, how students were able to be successful. Erica is our director over our Human Services and Medical Assisting program, and has really taken a lot of her 8-week courses at scale across her program of study, working with a lot of mothers in her program, working with a lot of working students, and they found with the cognitive load, taking fewer courses courses at a time was just much more advantageous for them. I had mentioned to you a little bit earlier that we're transitioning to the Aviso platform there. So you see Aviso there. Many of you are using that early alert tool. We're really excited about utilizing that predictive analytics tool. And that supports our guided pathways work that we've done. We have the meta majors on our website. So we're excited about that, showing clear pathways. We've done curriculum trimming where we've looked at kind of courses that might have been in the pathway that we needed to eliminate or streamline so that there's fewer credits to completion. So that work has been done. So Aviso will help students, of course, identify those educational plans and keep them on that plan, in addition to using the early alerts and using attaboys and other types of positive reinforcement for students, and allowing us to be able to pull reports where we see students may be struggling or having challenges, and being able to work together in that centralized case management tool to be able to manage student success and help them navigate from start to finish. Another program that we're particularly excited about too, that we are launching this fall at scale, is a required teaching and learning program for all of our full-time faculty. It will be an option for our part-time faculty, but it's required for all of our full-time faculty. And we utilize a resource that we were all given access to through our North Carolina Student Success Center, and that was those teaching and learning modules. I think they sent them out last spring. There were 6 modules in all, and my academic leadership team reviewed the modules and identified 3 that we felt would be a good focus for our faculty in the teaching and learning space. We know that strategic enrollment management is not just about new enrollment, but it's about keeping the students that we have. It's about retaining the students. And so getting back to a comment I made in the very beginning, looking at the teaching and learning that's happening on campuses, knowing that that's been a space that really hasn't been widely kind of addressed or kind of focused in on. It's been more of the wraparound services, seeing this as an opportunity to support both our full and part-time faculty, utilizing those modules, creating what we're calling professional learning communities. So we'll have interdisciplinary teams of faculty, so general education faculty with continuing education faculty in a cohort of about 10 faculty, being led by some of our faculty who've demonstrated success in the classroom. They're going to be the coaches of each one of those teams, and our faculty will work almost in a flipped classroom model on each one of those modules, taking a module at a time and meeting twice a month to discuss what they learned in the module and how they applied what they've learned, the strategies, directly to their classes in real time. So we are so excited about that. The modules that we're focusing in on, we're starting with growth mindset. Not only about growth mindset as far as how we perceive our students and the capabilities and the potential in each and every student, but also a growth mindset and how do we perceive ourselves as faculty, and are we open to growth, and are we open to new ideas and new strategies. So looking at growth mindset from an equity perspective, but also as a reflective practitioner. We're also going to be doing the module on backward design, and then we'll be doing the module on universal design learning. So we're excited about that. We'll close out in May with the Teaching and Learning Summit, where we'll have the faculty who participated in those interdisciplinary teams present poster sessions on what strategies they use in their classes, how effective were their strategies, and was there any data that they collected that let them know whether or not it worked or didn't work so well. So we're excited about that. We also have mentioned here in the slide, Achieving the Dream, because they help us launch that program with some of our academic leadership, our department chairs, et cetera, in May by customizing some teaching and learning sessions based on their teaching and learning toolkit that kind of framed our teaching and learning fellowship program. They came and did multiple workshops with our teams to kind of give information about what good teaching and learning looks like and what high impact practices they have seen in their research of over 300 institutions that have proven to really move the needle on student success in the classroom. And soon you'll be seeing the teaching and learning hubs that will be launched statewide, starting with the eastern and the western regions, where there will be a hub in one region and a hub in the other region. 2 community colleges, in our case in the western region, it will be ourselves in Catawba Valley. They will be the primary kind of location for the face-to-face professional development, and we'll be offering faculty development across those regions, the northern and southern regions to come.
Yeah, one thing, and we're excited about all that work. I will tell you all that initially, when we started thinking about making some strategic changes at the college, we intentionally started external to the classroom to think, what things can we do administratively to provide additional support and for our students and for our faculty. So before we looked internal to the classroom, teaching and learning, we kind of thought, what can we do first before we ask the faculty to change how they're teaching, how students are learning? What can we do to provide a more supportive environment college-wide? So I think that has been an important decision that we made, and I'm hopeful that it's going to lead to the faculty really now fully embracing this teaching and learning initiative as we're going into this year, so that they seem to be eager to get into that work and looking at their data and figuring out what can we do to continue to build momentum. The last thing here that we're going to mention, and we'll open it up here quickly for Q&A after this slide, but one thing that we're doing that we have launched with Surrey Community College is just an ongoing discussion about data and looking in partnership with a neighboring college to see, are there certain things that we are doing well with that they might learn from, and other things that maybe they're doing and having better success with that we might learn from. So we have had our leadership teams beginning to engage in those conversations, and we're looking to next year to begin involving some of our mid-level managers and ultimately our faculty members in those conversations. And I'll just give you as an example, Wilkes Community College has had very, very good success with our performance measures around mathematics. We get really, really good results with math. And so Surrey is eager to look to us and say, what are you all doing that's different than what the rest of us are doing to have such good results in math? Well, we're going to have that conversation. Their English scores seem to track a little higher than ours do. So we're looking, to see, have they found some secret sauce there that maybe we could share and learn from. So just having those data conversations, we're finding with the different institutions, the different strategies, different ways of achieving results, it's providing a good place to have that professional dialogue. So we're excited about where that's going to go. Dr. Wilson and I will wrap up. We want to thank you all for your hanging in here with us, and we'll pause. And if you've got questions, you can put them up in the chat or come off mute to ask your questions, and we will try to answer them.
Go ahead, please. Anyone who has a question. Great information, by the way. Whew, I'm tired for you.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
You all are doing a lot.
If we look tired, it's because we are tired. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes, vacation time is in your future.
He says in our future.
So I'll ask the first question to get everyone started. If a college, and we have a lot of colleges doing a lot of great things, but if a college wants to start to do things you're doing, what would be the first thing you would recommend them to do?
Well, I think for us, Monty, it was focusing our attention around that strategic planning process, just to be intentional about what is it that we wanted to do and to what end. So developing the why, understanding why is it you need to change. I'm a big proponent in the idea that nobody changes just for the fun of going through the change. If people don't understand and feel a pretty compelling why, then they're not going to want to make any kind of change. So for us, that why was about economic mobility. We talked a lot about in the early days about the people in our service area, you know, the 2 out of 3 chance if you're a kid born in our service area poor, that you're going to stay poor. We really use that as a rallying cry to say to our faculty, nobody was satisfied with that. Everybody wanted to improve the economic mobility. So we started talking about our why, and that led into the strategic plan, which then led us down the path of identifying all these specific areas that we thought we needed to impact to start making improvements.
So pretty much identify what you really want to accomplish up front.
Yeah, I think so.
Any other questions? Don't be shy.
This is Trudy from the system office. And I work with disability services. And in your slide with your people that work in your organization, you know, you mentioned counseling and other agencies, but you didn't mention disability services. And you have one of the finest states, Grace Moore and her staff. And she was not mentioned, and disability services was not mentioned anywhere in your slides. And we know that a lot of our students have disabilities.
Yes.
Hard supporting these students. So I wonder why it was mentioned.
Well, that, yeah, Trudy, I would tell you that there were, you know, probably 500 things that we didn't mention that we could have, and it's the point, you know, well taken. We didn't focus that we didn't focus on disability services in the presentation. I wouldn't presume from that we're not focusing on disability services at the college. You mentioned we've got a fantastic leader in Renee Macemore of the work with our students with various kinds of disabilities. They're well ingrained in all these different strategic initiatives that we are doing. We just didn't call that out as a separate thing, maybe because it's integrated in with everything. We didn't talk a lot about equity in this, but that's certainly central to our work as well. Equity across all kinds of different stakeholder groups, including students with disabilities in there. So that it is a focal point for us, as is the larger equity lens, looking at race, ethnicity, poverty, a lot of different. Our students are not lacking in barriers that they have to overcome from a lot of different fronts, and certainly one of those are students with disabilities. We're actually going through a pretty thorough process right now and trying to take the final steps on making our campus more accessible. We've had that's been a work in progress here. We've made a lot of progress with that, but our campus is built kind of on the side of a mountain, and it's not always easy. We've got actually one of our trustees is in a wheelchair. And having her trying to access different places in the campus, along with a couple of students we've had over the last couple of years, has raised our awareness on that issue, and something we're trying to work on to improve. But yeah, the disability service is definitely integral to what we're doing. So thank you for raising that.
I appreciate you addressing that. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any other questions? I have one last question, and I'll let everyone go because I know we met our time. Ms. Holden, how would a college get in touch with MyFutureNC to build a partnership with you? That's, I think, very important.
Absolutely. I will stick a contact in the chat, and I'll put my cell phone number out there as well. Happy to communicate with anybody. This is important work.
Don't put your cell phone number out there.
I don't mind. You know what? People take my calls. I want to take theirs too. So thank you.
I love it. I love it.
Sweet.
Yes.
They're a great partner for all of us and
That's right.
supportive of the work we're doing at the community colleges. So we want to support your work too, Ms. Cecilia. So thank you.
Exactly.
You've been
We
great
really do.
partners. Thank you.
Wonderful. So with that being said, I want to thank our presenters, Ms. Cecilia Holden. I'm going to repeat it again because when I said it the first time, I don't think I was recording. So I want everyone to have your names. Ms. Cecilia Holden, president of MyFutureNC, Dr. Jenny Corn, who's the director of strategic initiatives with MyFutureNC, President Dr. Jeff Cox, the president of Wilkes Community College, and Dr. Yolanda Wilson, vice president for instruction at Wilkes Community College also. Thank you all for presenting, and thank everyone for being on.
Thank you all for staying
You have
with
a
us.
wonderful time.
Thank you, Monty.
All right.
Thank
Y'all
you.
take care.
Bye-bye.
And I will send out this recording also. Let's see.